You are going to learn an incredibly valuable skill on the channel today. One of the big skills that I have as a player is I am capable of creating off meta lists that counter the meta threats. And this is something that I'm going to give to you today. I'm going to use this recent release of the Ceremite Sentinels detachment for Space Marines to show you my method. One of the problems that I have as a content creator and as an educator is that I cannot download all of the information and nuance in my brain into you. Now, if you were one of my private coaching clients, I would get a lot closer, but even for them, I can't download my exact knowledge and nuance into them. But what I teach them is what I'm going to teach you today, which is my exact method for coming to the decisions and the conclusions that I do in the meta. Okay, so here's how I create lists that counter the meta. Dial it in. This is going to be short. It's going to be sweet. It's going to be straight to the point. So let's jump right into it. I have a method where I do three things. I read, I interpret, and then I iterate. Okay? So the very first thing I do is I read through the detachment, and then I'm going to interpret what is the detachment telling me it wants to do. Once I do that, I'm going to identify all of the individual units that want to utilize the abilities of the detachment the most. Then I will iterate. I will iterate what is the right combination. Okay, so as we read through this detachment together, I'm not just going to be reading it to you like you've seen on 1,000 other videos. I'm going to be showing you how I'm going to immediately implement all of the knowledge of it or all the abilities of the detachment into your army list. So let's just jump right into it. First off, we're playing Space Marines. We know the faction rules, Oath of Moment. Great, you get reroll hit rolls, and we got to discover now, is this wanting a Codex compliant chapter or is this wanting a specific chapter? But we can't get that knowledge yet until we read the detachment rule. So let's go on into the detachment rule. Very, very simple. The detachment rule. Each time an Adeptus Astartes model from your army makes an attack, if that model's unit is within terrain feature, reroll a hit roll of 1, reroll a wound roll of 1. Okay, most people get that part, no problem. Now, what I want to do first is I want to show you how I dissect this sentence. The sentence is very simple. It says, hey, each time an Adeptus Astartes model, what does that mean? It is unrestricted, meaning everything in your detachment or in your army will apply as long as it comes from the Adeptus Astartes. So this is one of the big things that most people miss, or many people miss, when they're first analyzing detachments. They don't check for keyword restrictions. There is no restriction on this detachment rule, meaning right off the bat, ding, you know it is at least broadly applicable, which tends to lean into a stronger detachment. When things are keyword locked, they're going to be weaker. Okay, we got that. So it is not keyword restricted. Very, very important to recognize. Then we say within terrain features. Now, in Warhammer 40k rules, GW tends to write there's a really profound difference between within and wholly within. This just says within. In our head, we got to ask ourselves the question, what does that mean? Well, within literally means 0.01 millimeters of your model can be barely just tapping a terrain feature, and you're within that terrain. That's all it means. Which means on standard competitive terrain layouts, it's incredibly easy to get this detachment rule. All right, no problem. Cool. And then the next part doesn't apply to us yet because we don't know what this new keyword entrenched means. But as a preview, we know that if our unit was within a terrain feature and was not set up on the battlefield this turn, and no model in that unit has moved more than 3 inches this turn, we get the entrenched keyword. And it says turn, meaning you're always going to be entrenched. Whatever the heck that means, remember, we're pretending that we have no knowledge at this point. Whatever the heck that means that you're going to be entrenched in your opponent's turn almost always. Okay. Then the next thing we do is we immediately pause and we say, okay, what likes this rule? Well, the reality is your entire army effectively just gets reroll hit rolls and wound rolls of 1. What likes that? Literally freaking everything. Let's dissect this even further. What this means is effectively your army, which is generally reliant on Oath of Moment, because you have to be able to focus fire a unit down, more or less no longer needs its army rule. So, when you don't need your army rule, that's such a beautiful thing because it means you get to use Oath reflexively as a desire. Hey, I just want to Oath these guys just to buff up my damage a little bit, but I don't need it. I could do without. Meaning it gives you crazy flexibility where you get to use your Oath of Moment target, which is such a blessing when you are trying to operate an army like Marines. Hey, one of the biggest decisions every single turn, it's not really that big a deal anymore because you don't need it. It's just something that you get to use that is nice. Now, if you look at most of my army lists that I design, whether it's my Blood Angels or my Dark Angels or anything like that, I almost always try specifically to design my army list to not need Oath of Moment so that I can use Oath of Moment as a flexible piece where I just want it. And it's always key, which means right off the bat, I know that my detachment rule is amazing. Next thing I look at is these enhancements, and I just try to ask myself, do any of these enhancements really change the game? And if they don't, I pretty much plan to play without them. If they do, then I plan to play with them. All right, so first off, honor into fatigable, grabs model only. You die on a 2-up, you stand back up to you stand back up. All right, is this particularly super valuable? No. It's really not. Now, it can be useful on a Gravis Captain if you just want to run a solo Gravis Captain, just as kind of an action monkey. But the reality is, if I want to run action monkeys, I'm going to be running either a Combi Lieutenant or I'm running a Lieutenant in Phobos armor, because a Lieutenant in Phobos armor only costs me 55 points. The dude has Scout, he has Infiltrate, he has Scoot and Shoot. There's no way I'm taking a Gravis Captain for, pardon me, I think it's like 80 points. It could be 90 for that many points, and then whatever the cost of this enhancement is. I'm just not doing it. It's not necessarily a bad enhancement. It's just not anything that changes what I'm going to be doing on tabletop. So there's no unit in the game that is Gravis that can take this that will dramatically change the way the game is played just by having this ability. It just doesn't exist. There is a odd way where maybe you would do it if this was the Terminator keyword, because then you could take a solo Terminator character, deep strike them in your opponent's deployment zone. Your opponent wants to shoot them to death. Well, they stand up on a 2, which means they have to dedicate another turn trying to kill that character. Then maybe it would be useful, but on a Gravis character, you don't have deep strike, so no, it doesn't work. All right, Castellan Omnivox. Adeptus Astartes model only. Each time, once again, you read that. What's the keyword? It's not keyword locked, meaning this can go on any character leading any unit that the character is able to lead. That's important because if this only applied to Terminators, that would be something very, very different. Basically, the unit is able to either do an action when they fall back or shoot and charge in a turn which they fall back. This is a movement buff. Movement buffs are amazing. So this is an incredible enhancement. Right off the bat, you should be thinking, yeah, but what units in Space Marines do I generally lead? Because there's a lot of units that you don't lead, right? I mean, you don't lead intercessors. Just not something that you really lead. You might lead assault intercessors, but the reality is assault intercessors are not going to survive a ongoing combat, so the likelihood of them ever being able to use this is very, very low. Okay, cool. So I already know I don't really care about it on assault intercessors. I don't really care about it on normal intercessors. Got it. What are other units that might enjoy something like this? Well, I already know that I have a huge damage buff. So if I have a huge damage buff of reroll hit rolls of 1 and reroll wound rolls of 1, and it's not only in melee, it's also in shooting, I like hybrid units. I know this army likes hybrid units. What's a great hybrid unit that is typically going to be led by a character? Aggressors. Now, I know you might be thinking, oh, but aggressors suck. Aggressors don't suck. Aggressors have just been out of the meta for quite a while. But aggressors who already reroll hit rolls and wound rolls of 1, that is kind of interesting because now they're hitting on 3s, rerolling hit rolls of 1. They don't need Oath of Moment for what they're going into. Their Power Fists are already twin linked in melee, granted, so you don't need to reroll wound rolls of 1. But this means that they are still very functional without an Oath of Moment target because hitting on 3s, rerolling hit rolls of 1, might as well be hitting on 2s. And the reality is that in this detachment, I mean, anything in Space Marines can get +1 to hit, at least in shooting, very easily via the use of things like incursors. So I can have those aggressors hitting on 2s and shooting, rerolling hit rolls of 1, 4 rolls to hit because they got the twin linked things, and the bolt guns that aren't twin linked, the ones that are just blast, you're still rerolling wound rolls of 1. Okay, that's actually really, really solid. Now I can also fall back, shoot, and charge, which means I can actually use both aspects of the both shooting and melee, so both parts of the unit. This is actually a really interesting enhancement on a unit of aggressors. Now, it could be useful on other things as well, but on aggressors in particular, this is actually quite useful. Okay, now we're looking at Spy Skull Data Link. Ranged weapons equipped by models in the Bears unit have the Ignore Cover ability. Now, Ignore Cover is actually really, really good, but once you understand how the way enhancements work, you know this is really only going to apply to either mounted or infantry units because those are the only things that are going to be led. What are units that want Ignore Cover? That are infantry? I mean, you could say intercessors want Ignore Cover, but the reality is, like, you're probably not, if you're playing competitively, you're not going to be leading your intercessors with a character. So, all right, that's kind of out. You could say that it's really kind of hard when you think about it. Like eradicators don't care. I'm their AP4. They're getting full rerolls to hit, wound, and damage anyway into the things that they're shooting. Stern Guard, is that really that valuable for most Stern Guard? You kind of got to ask yourself that question, don't you? So you see where I'm going at there. There's not really that many infantry units that actually care about ignoring cover when you're playing Space Marines. Just not the way it is. Now, many other units might actually really want to ignore cover, your vehicles and your dreadnoughts and stuff like that, but this will only apply to your infantry or your mounted things. So it is what it is. There is one potential caveat to this. Maybe you really want it on your Stern Guard, because your Stern Guard with their bolt rifles and their heavy bolters really like reroll hit rolls of 1. Or I'm sorry, they have AP1. AP1 ignoring cover is a heck of a lot better than just AP1. All right, anyway, it's just things that we like to think about. Next one, defensive mastery. After both players have deployed their armies, select up to 3 Adeptus Astartes units from your army and redeploy them. What is this really useful for? Well, this is really useful if you want to take the enhancement. It's really useful for your infiltrator units. So if you're playing scouts, you're playing infiltrators, you can string them out across the battlefield if you deploy first, denying the juicy or the good infiltration spots to your opponent's infiltrators, and then right before the game starts, you just redeploy them somewhere else so that they're not at risk at dying if you go second. Right? So it's a useful enhancement, but it doesn't really change much that I'm going to be doing. So out of these 3 enhancements, fallback shoot and charge is really the only one I'm like, ooh, this is one that I'm going to be planning on. And I already know the units that I have in mind. I like aggressors. I like Stern Guard. That's just what we know. We got it. Okay, cool. Now, where do we go from here is the strats. Now, the strats are really going to be start like honing us in on what type of units that we really, really want here. Stratagem number 1 is Unyielding Might. For 1 CP, command phase, 1 Adeptus Astartes unit. Once again, keyword not locked. It's unlocked, meaning it applies to any unit in your army. Great. It gives you crazy flexibility. 1 unit from your army that is within engagement range of 1 or more enemy units. And until the start of your next command phase, add 1 to the OC characteristic of models in your unit. It also, this is really important, when you're reading the stratagem, it says command phase, which means the command phase, not yours, not your opponent's. Very important, meaning that this stratagem can be used twice in a battle round. This is a very, very big deal. Typically, the units that really want to make use of stratagems like this are going to be your melee units, because I can charge in, kill something, pile in, tag your trash, spend 1 OC in the command phase, deny the objective to you. Or I can expect to get charged by your stuff, hopefully survive, spend 1 CP, double my OC, try to control it in my turn as well. So this is a very flexible and incredibly powerful stratagem. It's one of the main things that makes the Wrath of the Rock list. If you guys are familiar with my Dark Angels Wrath of the Rock list, it's one of the few stratagems that really make that army function. Meaning that my Deathwing Knights typically just do not care. They can absolutely always control an objective, because even though they have an OC of 1, now as long as they're engaged, they might as well have OC 2 or even 3 at times. Or even 4 if I'm leading it with an ancient, which, if you guys know me, I love ancients. All right, stratagem number 2, stand to the end. Fight phase, just after an enemy unit has selected its targets. 1 Adeptus Astartes, once again, keyword unlocked. You can use this on dreadnoughts, you can use this on vehicles if you wanted. Unit from your army that was selected as the target of 1 or more of the attacking enemy attacks until the end of the phase. Each time a model in your unit is destroyed, it's a 4-up fight on death. However, for the first time, we're starting to see the impact of that keyword entrenched. That keyword entrenched that we had earlier, which, if you need a refresher, told us that the unit is within a terrain feature. That unit was not set up on the battlefield this turn, and no model in that unit has moved more than 3 inches this turn. Okay, this is important, because this gives you a 3-up fight on death for 1 CP if you're entrenched. And since you're basically always going to be entrenched in your opponent's turn, you're basically always going to have a 3-up fight on death. That is solid. What units like fight on death? Melee units. What are melee units in as far as Space Marines are concerned? You got Blade Guard, you got Terminators, and you got really your aggressors. I mean, yes, you have JPI and you have Assault Marines, but those guys are generally going to be much lower impact as far as melee units are concerned. So what this is what's happening right now is this detachment is telling me what it wants me to run. It wants me running melee units that are going to be in the thick of things, that are going to be doubling their OC to try to steal control from my opponents. They're giving me things that allows me to reroll my hit rolls, make me more efficient. This army, interestingly enough, is really liking melee as of right now. And then we get into the real juice of this detachment. So this next stratagem, priority strike. Your shooting phase, or very key, or the fight phase, Now, this is the first time we see a keyword lock in the detachment, all right? You want Adeptus Astartes infantry or mounted units. So this only applies to your infantry or mounted units. Now I'm starting to say, okay, cool. So this detachment really, really wants infantry in here, especially since it's talking about melee a lot. We're talking your Terminators, your Aggressors, etc., etc. Basically, until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes an attack that targets a character, a monster, or a vehicle unit, you get to re-roll the wound roll. Oh boy. What loves this? I can't say aggressors anymore because aggressors they're already twin linked, right? But what loves this? I'm not really even gonna say Blade Guard veterans. I mean, Blade Guard veterans, they're strength 5, but like with Super Oath, they can be +1 to wound. Then they could reroll wound rolls. All right, they may like it. Victrix Honor Guard might like it, right? If I was playing, say, an Ultramarine, for example. But what loves this? Things that love this are going to be devastating wounds and anti keywords. Deathwing Knights love this. Reroll wound rolls with anti-monster vehicle 4-up is actually a incredible buff to the damage of Deathwing Knights. Reroll wound rolls with Thunderhammer Terminators, fishing for those devastating wounds, is absolutely incredible. Reroll wound rolls on Sanguinary Guard who happen to have, like, I don't know, AP3 weaponry, but the generally lower strength 6 or so, is actually a massive, massive damage buff. But I guess I kind of went outside my rule there because it's not the anti-keyword, but bear with me on that one. Pardon me on that one. So then the next thing that I'm really thinking about here, though, dude, it's Sternguard. Sternguard. I'm starting to compare the detachment rule that I have. What does the detachment rule give me? It gives me units that just don't need Oath. My units don't need Oath. But Sternguard have to have Oath. But now my Sternguard don't need Oath. Now I can have Sternguard that hit on 3s, maybe shoot my target within a Incursor unit first. So they're hitting on 2s, rerolling hit rolls of 1. And then I can just spend 2 CP, 1 CP if I'm led by a captain, and get full rerolls to wound, regardless of whether or not that's my Oath of Moment target. This gives me an incredible amount of flexibility with the damage that I am able to apply to my opponents. Wow. This is crazy. I can just, on demand, get full rerolls to wound with my Sternguard. This gives me the option of running more than one unit of Sternguard. Now, most armies, the reason why we don't see Sternguard all that much is because Sternguard require Oath, and you might need your Oath to do other things, but not in this army. This army, as a matter of fact, and I can maybe do this a little bit more in just a little bit, can support up to 3 Sternguard units. Now, I'm not saying you want to run 3 Sternguard units, but it can support that. So now I know this army loves infantry, loves melee infantry, loves Sternguard. Okay. Augmented targeting. Your shooting phase, one Adeptus Astartes unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot this phase. Select either the Sustained Hits 1 or Lethal Hits ability. Until the end of the phase, ranged weapons equipped by models in your unit have entrenched or have the selected ability. If you're entrenched, you get both. You've already seen this one on other channels. Obviously, the choice for this is going to be Desolation Marines. Like, great. Desolation Marines, boom. They get sustained and lethal. They already ignore cover. This is brutal on Desolation Marines that are shooting into the Oath of Moment target. And now they're also re-rolling wound rolls of 1 because you can guarantee that I'm going to be touching a terrain piece with one of my Desolation Marines. Desolation Marines absolutely adore this detachment. This army allows you to run a unit of Desolation Marines, 4 rolls to hit because they need that for their Oath of Moment. Or they need that because they're using indirect. So the normal reroll 1s to hit isn't enough. They actually do need Oath of Moment here. And then +1 to wound because you're using Super Oath. Rerolling wound rolls of 1. It means you are basically easily one-tapping any 27-man Imperial Guard army in the entire game because you also have sustained and lethal and all that. Hitting on 4s, 4 rolls to hit, sustained and lethal, wounding on 2s, rerolling wound rolls of 1 into infantry. It means that this army, this unit, just doesn't care about infantry armies at all. Just says, bye-bye, all infantry dies. Very, very powerful unit for 1 CP. If you really wanted to get crazy about it, you could also spend 2 CP and give them full rerolls to wound. I don't think that's necessary in really hardly any cases, but it's brutal. So this army loves Desolation Marines due to this one stratagem. Now every unit loves this. Like everything loves on-demand sustained hits or on-demand lethal hits. It's just a great stratagem. But units that are going to be remaining still, that's tough because remember, it's you only have the entrenched keyword in this turn if you have moved less than 3 inches, if you're within terrain, and pardon me, there's one have not been set up on the battlefield this turn, so not if you're arriving from reserves or anything. So the things that are going to be entrenched is few and far in between in your turn. You're basically always going to be entrenched in your opponent's turn, but few and far in between in your turn. So that means dead zones. All right, armor of contempt. Everything freaking loves armor of contempt. And then lastly, we have the evasive repositioning. Your opponent's shooting phase just after an enemy unit has shot. One Adeptus Astartes infantry or mounted. So once again, this is keyword locked to only infantry and mounted units. You can make a normal move of up to D6 if you're entrenched, or you can reroll the D6 determining how far your unit can move. So now we also have a reactive move to being shot. Cool. Now, after I've done all this, and guys, I'm going to give you a few lists here, okay? I'm going to give you just a few lists as examples to get your brain juices going. These lists are not like perfect. They're not completely competition ready. I just wanted to give it to you to get your creative juices really running. But now that we've completed all of these, what do we know that this detachment loves? First off, everything likes a good damage buff. All right, so anything that's typically viable is viable in this detachment. But we can do some really, really interesting things here. With a reroll of 1 to hit and wound, more or less across the board, because all you got to be is within terrain, not wholly within terrain. Shooting armies love this, but melee armies love this. Okay, we can do aggressors real well because our aggressors can be fallback shoot. Our aggressors can reactively move back into a transport with our reactive move. Our aggressors can charge on in, and they don't need Oath of Moment at all because they're shooting, hitting on 3s, re-rolling hit rolls of 1, full re-rolls to wound because they're twin linked anyway. And then when they go on in on the charge roll, they're hitting on 3s, re-rolling hit rolls of 1, full re-rolls to wound anyway. At the end of the activation or in your opponent's command phase, you can spend 1 CP to increase the OC of your unit to really fully deny objectives to your opponent. And then if your opponent shoots you, you can always roll a d6 to reactive move back inside a land raider, for example, that may have deposited them. Speaking of units that like this detachment, land raiders love this detachment. They love this detachment because suddenly those Godhammer las cannons, which people think are generally pretty bad, are hitting on 3s, rerolling hit rolls of 1, strength 12, but rerolling wound rolls of 1. That is a massive difference on the actual amount of damage output that you have. If it's a Land Raider Redeemer even, rerolling hit wound rolls of 1 on those strength 6 AP2 damage 2 flamers can be a very, very big damage buff that you have. This, applies everywhere. It's very, very powerful. It even applies in your Overwatch that you're trying to set up. So all of these units really, really like it. So this army loves assault. This detachment loves assault armies, but you don't have access to things like advance and charge. You don't have access to fallback, shoot, and charge outside of that one lead unit. So it really wants 1 or 2 hard-hitting melee units, no more than that. It loves assault terminators. Assault terminators go on in, 2-up armor save, 4-up invulnerable save. They can get a reactive move after the first time they're shot. They can get full rerolls to wound with their devastating wound thunderhammers. This is a unit that this army really likes. And the second I start thinking assault terminators, I'm like, okay, all right. Who likes assault terminators? Imperial Fist like assault terminators. This, in my opinion, is the Imperial Fist detachment. Emperor's Shield, whatever. This is the Imperial Fist detachment because when Darnath Lysander is leading those assault terminators, they're also -1 to be wounded. So now they're -1 to be wounded, 2-up armor save, 4-up invulnerable save, 4 wounds each. They're going to be, 2 OC because Darnath is leading the character, or is leading the army. He's the warlord. Then they're also going to be getting an extra OC from the stratagem. They can also reactive move on the fallback, perhaps back inside of a land raider. So this army loves land raiders combined with assault marine units. You see how it works. This army also loves Stern Guard veterans in particular. I'm going to show you an Ultramarine list here in just a moment that has 3 squads of Stern Guard, each one of them with full rerolls to wound and effectively full rerolls to hit. Very, very powerful. And then the last thing that immediately jumps out to me is this is the Dreadnought Party detachment. Stop it with Ironstorm. You can get 1 reroll per unit. Here, my entire army of Dreadnought spam can actually just get reroll 1s to hit and wound. And if I stack that with Tech Marines and Incursors, everyone's hitting on 2s, rerolling hit rolls of 1, which is effectively the entire army now has Oath of Moment. And then I'm also shooting at people with reroll wound rolls of 1, which is a dramatic damage buff as well. So I'm going to show you these 3 lists. I'm not going to spend too much time going through all of them. I just want you guys to actually have the opportunity to check them out. So here we go. We'll go first with this one, which was, let's start with the Imperial Fist balance. So check this. You get Darnath, you got Tor Garradon, you got a Lieutenant in Phobos armor, you got a Tech Marine, 5 Intercessors, sticky, you got 6 Aggressors, 3 Inceptors, double Scouts, 5 Assault Terminators, 1 Land Raider Redeemer, 1 Redemptor Dreadnought, and a Calidus. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. You have 11 strong units here. You've got the ability to deep strike in with Darnath to do his business. You have the aggressors inside the Land Raider. Land Raider moves up. Aggressors get out. They shoot something down. They charge in. They have the ability to out-OC your opponent now by doubling the OC or, increasing the OC by 1 in the command phase. If your opponent shoots them, which of course they're going to want to shoot them, then you get to reactive move potentially back inside of the Land Raider. So you've got so much capability here. Give it a whirl. Like I said, these lists are not necessarily finished. These are kickoff points that I want to give you just to get your creative juices running. Dreadnought Party, double type Marine. We got 1 squad of Desos, because they're going to kill all the trash. 1 squad of Incursors to give that sweet +1 to hit. 1 squad of Infiltrators, good, important to screen things out. A Scout Squad, we love Infiltrators. Double Ballistas, a Reaper, triple Redemptor, Storm Speeder Hammer Strike, Storm Speeder Thunder Strike, Callous Assassin. The Thunder Strike in this detachment is awesome because it can effectively give you a second super Oath of Moment target. I don't care who you run this as. You can run this as whatever color Marine you want, because now you get to use your Oath of Moment for a free +1 to wound. Then you can also use the Thunder Strike to give you another +1 to wound. And so then everything in your army is effectively hitting on 2s, more or less full rolls to hit, whether it's the Oath of Moment or you're just using your natural reroll hit rolls of 1, +1 to wound, and rerolling wound rolls of 1, or full rolls to wound if you are an infantry squad like the Desolations are, potentially. Then lastly, I've got a triple Stern Guard list for you here. I'm going to run Captain Titus. I'm going to run Robuta Gulliman, 1 Lieutenant and Phobos, double type Marine. I have Incursors for that +1 to hit. Scout Squad, 3 squads of Stern Guard, a Land Raider Redeemer, Storm Raven Gunship, and a Calidus Assassin. This is awesome because it allows me to go sacrifice Stern Guard early to go absolutely turbo nuke the unit that needs to be turbo nuked. And then I still have 2 more squads I can go turbo nuke the other units that need to be nuked. The Storm Raven can start in reserves, or it can start on the table depending on your abilities. When you have Robute Gulliman on the table, now what you get to do is you get to go, all right, this is my first Oath of Moment target. This is my second Oath of Moment target. I can literally move my Storm Raven up, get all of my Stern Guard out, move my Land Raider Redeemer up, get all of my Stern Guard out, bring my other squad of Stern Guard out of reserves, or advance up the table. Have the first one kill the first target, Oath of Moment, 4 rolls to hit, +1, and then 4 rolls to wound with 1 Stern Guard unit. Second Oath of Moment target, the second Stern Guard obliterates with 4 rolls to hit, 4 rolls to wound. Third target, I will actually get hitting on 2s, Incursors, give +1 to hit, reroll hit rolls of 1, and then spend 2 CP to get full rerolls to wound, effectively giving yourself a third Oath of Moment target on those Stern Guard. This can put out so much darn trouble. So guys, this video went a little bit longer than I expected, but the reality is I wanted to give you guys the thought process of how you develop creating a truly counter meta list. I'm not claiming any of these are finalized. These lists are here for you just so that you can get your creative juices going. There's a lot more behind this, but this is my process. This is my method. As I go through the detachments, this is what I am thinking. How does this unit fit in? How does this unit fit in? What loves this rule? Think like that and come up with your own awesome stuff. I hope this video found you really well. Until next time, crump on. Bye-bye.